Hi, I'm Simon and this is The Ordinary Filmmaker. I wasn't planning on producing another video today, but I've spent the last hour fiddling around with the Canon R5 outside my backyard and I've been learning a few things and I thought, well, wait a minute. Why am I wasting this perfectly good footage when I can turn this into a video? So that's what I'm going to do. The purpose of this video is to show you what it's like to shoot in 4K 30 with C-Log. That's 10-bit 422. So I'm really excited to try that out. I have been having a few issues. I'm still learning a little bit about it. I still want to try shooting an entire video on full auto and see how this camera handles it. I certainly didn't do that with my Canon 70D, and there's nothing wrong with full auto. I know a lot of people are going to tell you you shouldn't do that. Your shutter speed should always be twice your frames per second. So I'm shooting this in 30 frames per second, all I in 4K 30. So it should be, the shutter should be set to 1/60th, right? Yes and no. Ideally, yes, that's what you want to go for, but if you're doing a lot of run and gun stuff and you're capturing your kids that are very quick on the move, you don't have time to pick up the camera, check the ISO, check the shutter, check the exposure. By the time you've done all that, you've missed his first steps or her first steps. So for that kind of stuff, leave the camera in full auto. The only thing to watch out for is if you're outside or where there's changing lighting situations, don't shoot into bright sunlight. Don't move the camera from different lighting situations or you're going to get results that don't look the best. And of course, when you first start filming, the camera might take a second or two to fully adjust to the lighting conditions. But there's nothing wrong with full auto. But the purpose of this video is to show you what 10-bit C-Log is all about. Now, one thing I like about this camera is when you're shooting C-Log, you're not just getting that muted, desaturated look, which I find very hard to work with when you're looking outside because, first of all, you don't have as much light, you can't really see what's going on, and if your eyesight's going a little bit, it's really hard. But the good news is, in the menu system, Canon has provided us with some tools to make this a little easier. So what you want to navigate to the menu. It's the very first one, and it's the third, I guess, chapter. I'm sorry, I should memorize the terms that Canon uses for these, but it's the third chapter, and you want to click on Canon Log Settings, and obviously you need to turn on Canon Log, so that's the first thing you need to do. And once you've turned on Log, then go down to where it says View Assist, and what I really like about View Assist here is then it will help you see more or less what post-production is going to look like. It's not going to be 100%, but you're looking through an LCD, so you're not going to get 100% even if it was dead on. And this will really help you get an idea of what the exposure is like, the colors, and all that kind of stuff, and what it's going to look like in post. So once you've turned View Assist on, then you want to go down to Color Matrix, and you have two choices. You can choose Cinema, or you can choose Neutral. I'm not sure really which one I like yet. I haven't really had the camera long enough to know. So I'm trying Cinema out first, but the one thing that is very, very important to realize here is this view that you're getting in no way whatsoever affects your final result. So it doesn't change how things are recorded to the card. You're capturing it in C-Log, and you are going to have to apply a LUT in post to bring your colors back, to make it look a little bit more alive, and I'm going to get into that in just a little bit. We're going to go inside, I'm going to show you what it's like. But one other thing I want to mention too, I've noticed that, I've been using 3 different cards. I've been using the SH1 SD card. No, I haven't been using the UHS2, so I've only used 2 cards. I should pre-qualify that. I've used 2 types of UHS-1 SD cards. I've used a V30, a very slow one, and a very fast one. It's a V30, but it's the SanDisk Extreme Pro that's rated at 170 megabytes per second read. That's the read off the card speed, but they can more or less, I'd say the minimum write speed's right around 80 megabytes. And I've gotten a few comments on these, so I am talking megabytes. That is correct, and that's what the card manufacturer writes. And just a little bit of some educations here, or some learnings. This is kind of a rule of thumb, but it's not always the way things are. So when it comes to storage, when it comes to files, anything that's on a storage device, it's generally measured in bytes. But the transmission of that information, for whatever reason, data in transmission, is measured in bits. Now this isn't always the case, and there's no reason why you can't use megabytes or megabits interchangeably. It's just a measurement. It's like, do you use liter or milliliter? Do you use ounces or do you use gallon? It's the same thing, you're just expressing it differently. But what is important to know here is that there are 8 bits in a byte. So let's go back to the cards. I know this is a dual, this camera, the R5 has dual card slots, but I'm only using the CFExpress one. In many of my previous videos, I said I really don't see the point to it. It's expensive. UHS-2 is cheaper, and I think certainly back then UHS-2 was cheaper, but right now the price difference between the two is not enough that it just basically doesn't make a difference. But the CFExpress, the speed of it is so much more faster. I can take files off of the CFExpress and it's like that. It's super fast, very, very fast. It impresses me at how fast it is. When I'm shooting these long videos like a Q&A, which I shoot, what's today, Thursday, Saturday, I shoot for about an hour, and when you're recording 4K 30 and you're pulling all that off, that makes a very big difference. So I really highly recommend, if you're getting the R5, to spend a little extra and get a CFExpress card. I use the ProGrade 325 Cobalt. That's probably about the smallest card I would get. This card has a minimum write speed of 1400 megabytes a second, and it can write as, I think the fastest speed on this card is around 1600 or 1700 megabytes. So it's not the fastest read, but in terms of write, you really can't go wrong with this card. And if you get the R5, no matter what you shoot, this card is really gonna set you up. It's got like a 3-year warranty. It's not like SanDisk. SanDisk will give you a lifetime warranty, and as long as you keep the receipt, they honor that. So, but yeah, I swear behind CFExpress. Whether you get the ProGrade or the SanDisk or something else, you're going to love the speed. You're just going to be shocked at how fast it is. So one of the things I'm curious, I'm going to go inside now, but do you notice much of a difference in the detail here, in the dynamic range? Are you really seeing a big difference? I've shot this particular scene or setting many, many times, shooting into the corner here. Then there's also a shot of the, I call it the barn, but it's a wooden shed. Do you see much of a difference? Let me know in the comment section down below. But let's go ahead and let's go back into the studio and let's take a look at what it takes to actually grade this thing. And I'll do it in the most painless way. I am going to use Final Cut Pro, but the process for Premiere or DaVinci should pretty much be the same. I'm using Final Cut Pro. If you're using DaVinci or Premiere Pro, things will be a little bit different. The first thing I need to do is I need to grab an effect, and on Final Cut, it's called a custom LUT. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that. I can double click on it, but I just like to drag. So I click on custom LUT and I drag it all the way down to my timeline. Once we've dragged the custom LUT down to the timeline, now we need to go and apply a LUT, because you've noticed nothing's changed in the video. I can go ahead and turn it off. No change whatsoever. The image still looks a little bit faded. So what we need to do is come up here to where it says LUT and it says none. Go ahead and click on it, and we've got a few options. These are LUTs that I've used in the past. I have a Mavic Pro, so I quite often toggle between these two here. If you would like to add LUTs to Final Cut and you don't have them, you've just downloaded them from the Canon's website, go ahead and uncompress them, and then what you can do is you can choose Custom LUT here. You would select where the LUTs are, and then you would click Open. Since I've already added them, all I have to do is I go ahead and select LUTs, and that's the folder that I name it. So Canon gave the folder a name. I renamed the folder to LUTs. And then my first option is Canon LUT 2019-11. So you can see the version that I have. Does that match yours? If it does, you're going to see the same options as me. I deleted the 1D LUT, leaving me with the 3D LUT. And once I select that, I have a choice between 17 grid 3D LUT or the 33 grid. And this is all about precision. Now, bigger isn't always better in this case. If you're shooting 1080 or 8-bit, whether it's 4K or 1080, choose the 17 grid 3D LUT. However, in this case, as I'm shooting in 4K with 10-bit, I want to choose 33 grid with more precision. Now, there is another option that was here, but I've gone ahead and deleted that because with the Canon R5, I'm just not going to need that level of precision. Then my only other choice, regardless of which one I pick, is full to full. And here you can see a lot of options. You could ignore the BT or Rec 2020, all these here, because those are related to 8K. So unless you're recording 8K video, completely ignore these. because the R5 uses Canon log or regular Canon log, I'm going to go ahead and select this one here, this LUT, and you can see the version there. I don't scrub these because I always like to have them as a reference. And there we go. So we can see it's brought back a bit more of the color. I still have some more work to do here, but that's how easy it is to apply a LUT. Now, if you're not too happy with it, you can go ahead and turn it off and say, well, how does it look before? And another thing you can do is you can play with the level at which, or how much. It's kind of like opacity, right? Turn it down to 0 and the LUT is not applied. Turn it to full, the LUT's in full force, and anywhere in between gives you a bit of a gradient. So I sometimes fool around with this depending on how things look. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to scan the video here. I want to see how it looks because there was some sun coming through. Unfortunately here things are looking a little bit washed out because I set my settings in manual, and this is what happens a lot of times if you shoot outside. So here we go, we're in the shade. We were in the shade for the longest time, and then of course the sun comes out and changes things a little bit. But generally the best thing to do when you're shooting outside is you want to shoot in a lighting condition that isn't going to change, and then you're not going to have these problems. But the other thing I want to play around with, I want to see how smooth the R5 is if I, let's say, let ISO, move around a little bit, keep it in auto, see if it adjusts without really making things look bad. Because a lot of times, especially on my 70D, if I let things on automatic, it would change the exposure, it would change the f-stop, it would change so many variables that it was just very hard to watch. But if I can lock down a bunch of them and change the rest, that should look pretty good. But generally, the best thing to do when you're shooting outside is shoot where the lighting isn't going to change, and you'll just avoid this problem altogether. But that's it for now. I just wanted to show you what 4K 30 looks like in 10-bit 422 and show you how to apply LUTs using Final Cut Pro. Thanks for watching The Ordinary Filmmaker. We'll see you again soon.